The sun beat down on the Atlantic that afternoon, a vast, indifferent blue stretching to the horizon. It was December 4th, 1872. Captain David Morehouse stood on the deck of the brigantine Dei Gratia, his eyes scanning the calm waters. They were 2 weeks out of New York, bound for Genoa, Italy, with a cargo of petroleum. The voyage had been uneventful, almost serene, until that moment. A speck appeared on the horizon, a vessel. Not unusual, but something about its posture, its drift, seemed off. Morehouse adjusted his spyglass. It was another brigantine, unmistakable in its solitary course. He recognized her. The Mary Celeste. She had departed New York 8 days before the Dei Gratia, also bound for Genoa. Her captain, Benjamin Briggs, was an acquaintance of Morehouse. They had even shared a final supper before setting sail. A strange coincidence to encounter her here, so far from any port. But the Mary Celeste was sailing erratically. Her sails were partially set, yet she was making no headway, merely drifting. No one was visible on deck. No flag flew. A strange stillness hung about her, even from a mile away. A profound sense of unease settled over Morehouse. This was not right. He ordered a small boat lowered and sent his first mate, Oliver Deveau, and 2 crewmen to investigate. The men rowed towards the silent vessel, the only sound the rhythmic splash of their oars against the tranquil surface. As the small boat approached, the silence deepened. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull was the only sound. Deveau hailed the Mary Celeste, his voice echoing across the water, but received no reply, no movement, no sign of life. The ship itself seemed to absorb sound, holding its breath. The closer they drew, the more palpable the sense of abandonment became. The Mary Celeste was a ghost on the water, a vessel without a soul, utterly devoid of the usual sounds of a working ship, the creak of rigging, the murmur of voices, the purposeful movement of men. Deveau clambered aboard, his boots clanking on the silent deck. The first thing he noticed was the profound emptiness. There was no one. The ship was still, yet it carried the faint, lingering scent of human presence, a ghost of recent life. The helmsman's wheel was unsecured, swinging freely in the gentle swell. The sails, a fore-lower topsail and a jib, were partially unfurled, hanging limply, gathering no wind, a testament to an abandoned task. The main hatch was open, its cover casually tossed aside, as if someone had merely stepped away for a moment. Further, a small boat, the yawl, was definitively missing from its davits. A quick search of the main deck revealed no signs of a struggle. Nothing seemed amiss, nothing broken, nothing violently disturbed. No bloodstains, no scattered weapons, no indication of a scuffle. It was as if the crew had simply vanished into thin air. Deveau descended below deck, his flashlight cutting through the gloom of the cabins. The captain's quarters, the mate's berth, the crew's sleeping areas, all were in order. Personal effects were neatly stowed. Captain Briggs's chronometer lay on a shelf. His sextant was also in its case, undisturbed. The ship's papers, however, along with the vessel's register, were conspicuously gone. In the galley, an unfinished meal lay on the table. Plates of food, half eaten, still warm to the touch, as though the diners had just risen. A coffee pot sat nearby, the brew long since cooled, but the remnants suggested it had been prepared only hours before. It was a scene frozen in time, a snapshot of mundane life abruptly interrupted, a moment suspended between presence and profound absence. The crew's bunks were all made. There was no water in the bilges, no indication of a leak or structural damage to the hull. The cargo of raw alcohol, 701 barrels, was perfectly intact, secured in the hold, not a single barrel disturbed. The ship's provisions, food and water were all accounted for and in ample supply. Deveau's heart pounded. This wasn't a wreck. This wasn't a mutiny, for no valuables were taken, no cargo plundered. This was something far stranger, far more unnerving. He searched for the logbook. He found the mate's slate, with the last entry dated November 25th, 8 a.m. It reported the Mary Celeste was 9 miles west of Santa Maria Island in the Azores. That was 9 days ago. 9 days this ship had been drifting, crewless, under the indifferent sun and stars. A week and a half of silent passage, an entire vessel carrying the spectral imprint of lives that had, for some unknowable reason, simply ceased to be there. What could have caused an entire crew, Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced seamen, to abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel in calm seas, leaving behind warm food and all their personal belongings? No distress signal had been fired, no indication of an emergency. The missing yawl suggested an organized departure, a deliberate act of leaving. But why? And to where? The vast, empty ocean around them offered no answers, just an endless expanse of blue that swallowed secrets whole. The very normalcy of the abandoned items, a sewing machine, a harmonium, a child's toy, only amplified the chilling mystery. It was as if a spell had been cast, and they had simply stepped out of reality. The theories began almost immediately, once the Mary Celeste was towed into Gibraltar. Some whispered of piracy, but the cargo was untouched, and pirates usually took more than just a ship's papers. The lack of violence, the undisturbed personal effects, spoke against it. Others suggested mutiny, but again, no signs of violence, no struggle, and the crew's personal items were left behind. Why would mutineers, having taken control, abandon their own possessions and the very ship they had fought for? It defied all logic. A more popular theory involved a waterspout, a powerful column of rotating air and water that could strike a ship with devastating force. But a waterspout typically leaves behind a trail of destruction, splintered masts, torn sails, structural damage. The Mary Celeste showed no such damage. Another idea was a sudden, violent squall, a rogue wave perhaps, that swept the crew overboard. But a squall fierce enough to take 10 people would surely leave a lasting mark on the ship itself. And why would they abandon ship in a small yawl in such conditions without any distress? The calm seas at the time of discovery also contradicted a recent, violent storm. Perhaps, some reasoned, the highly flammable alcohol cargo had begun to leak or emit dangerous fumes, causing Captain Briggs to fear an imminent explosion. He might have ordered everyone into the yawl, tethered to the ship, intending to wait for the danger to pass until the air cleared. But the yawl was never found, nor any trace of the crew or their small boat, and the cargo was secure. No evidence of a leak or gas buildup was ever discovered. If they had simply waited out an explosion, why were they not found? Why did they not return to their perfectly safe vessel? The absence of the yawl, the only piece of the puzzle that suggested a deliberate act of abandonment, only deepens the enigma. The official inquiry into the Mary Celeste case in Gibraltar found no satisfactory explanation. The ship itself was sound, her cargo intact. Yet 10 souls had vanished, leaving behind nothing but questions. The sea, vast and ancient, holds many secrets, but this one felt different. It wasn't a sinking, a storm, or a battle. It was a deliberate, collective departure into the profound unknown, a stepping out of existence, leaving behind only the eerie, unsettling echo of their last, unfinished moments. Captain Briggs was a devout man, known for his prudence and calm judgment. His crew was experienced, his ship well maintained. There was no apparent reason for such a drastic, illogical act. And yet, they were gone. The Mary Celeste sailed again under new owners, but the eerie shadow of her missing crew lingered like a persistent fog, clinging to her timbers. Every creak of her hull, every whisper of the wind through her rigging, seem to echo the unanswered question, carrying the silent lament of an unresolved fate. To this day, the fate of Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and his 7 experienced crewmen remains one of the most enduring and unsettling maritime mysteries. They simply disappeared, leaving behind a ship that was perfectly fine, a meal still warm, and a silence that stretched across the empty ocean, a silence that screams of an event we cannot comprehend. What force, seen or unseen, could compel an entire ship's company to abandon their vessel and step into nothingness? The Mary Celeste continues to drift through history, a chilling testament to the profound, unfathomable depths of the unknown, a ghost ship sailing endlessly in the human imagination.